Hello and welcome to my video for the top 10 best moments from the series Africa. So these are obviously just my personal picks for the best moments. There's quite a lot of good stuff in this series. As I said, this is one of my favourite series that they did. And yeah, there's quite a lot to like. So without further ado, I'm just going to dive in. So at number 10, I have the African rock python. So you don't see African rock pythons or pythons in general that often in these series. And this was quite an extensive look at them. And it's very good. It's very different. For starters, it does a very good job of balancing how kind of big and intimidating and scary the python actually is. Like it is, as I said, the biggest predator in the forest. The behaviour we're seeing is actually quite tender. It's quite a nice sequence. It's basically just this mother python looking after her eggs, putting herself through quite a lot of strain. She's putting herself at a lot of risk of starvation and overheating. And even when the eggs hatch, she still offers some parental care. It's really nice. It's a really good sequence. It's very different. Like most things in this series, it does subvert your expectations. At number 9, I have the African penguins. So at the time when the series came out, I don't think I knew that African penguins existed. This sequence is actually quite similar to a lot of penguin sequences in that it's basically watching one parent look after the eggs and put itself through quite a lot of stress to keep them alive. However, usually you're seeing penguins in Antarctica dealing with the Antarctic winter and trying to keep their eggs warm through that period of time. But this is different because it's penguins dealing with the heat. It does a good job of making the penguins look kind of out of place in Africa, which adds to, another unusual aspect of the continent. And I think it was just really good. It went on for quite a while, but you really did feel the suffering of the penguins. I think more so than you'd usually do in these series, because at least in Antarctica, you feel like the penguins are really adapted to it. Here, you kind of feel like the penguins are kind of out of their element, even though, they've obviously evolved to live there. But yeah, I thought it was really good. Again, a really memorable part of the series for me, and not something I expected to see going in. But no, this is a great sequence, and yeah, it's a really good one. At number 8, I have the Grey White Sharks. Yet another one that subverts your expectations. It's kind of similar to the pythons. You're dealing with a big, kind of scary animal. Like grey white sharks are probably one of the scariest animals alive today that we are aware of. Instead of focusing on how intimidating they are in their hunting, it basically just follows them feeding. It really shows a different side of them. You see the hierarchy between the sharks. You see that they don't really want to be too violent with each other. They're just kind of sizing each other up. And they're feeding on this whale carcass, which again, could look really scary with the right music. But the music in this sequence is so smooth and so calm. It's a really calm and mellow sequence. Considering you're watching this massive shark getting tore into a whale carcass, the music choice very well could have been really intimidating, very scary. But no, they went for a completely different angle. So instead of watching a monster, devouring a carcass, you're just watching a big animal feeding. And I think the tone really helped for me. It was really good. And the shots of the grey white sharks up close are amazing. Like, really good stuff. Yeah, this is a really good sequence. Again, another memorable one. But one that's pretty understated, I think. I think it's a really good sequence. At number 7, I have the shoebill. So the shoebill's an animal that hasn't really been shown before or since this series. So this is the best shoebill sequence we've ever had. And it's pretty great. It does a good job of highlighting how weird and how kind of prehistoric this thing looks. And the behaviour is also great as well, because it's actually a pretty dark sequence. You're basically watching one chick bully its sibling out the nest, and it gets abandoned by the parents. And they do a lot of damage control to tell you that this is a natural behaviour and this is pretty common, but that doesn't really detract from how dark the sequence is and how memorable it is. Again, it's an animal you don't see very often, and that's always pretty cool, and I think this is probably one of the most memorable sequences from this series, to be honest. Yeah, it's a really good one, really interesting sequence. Number 6, got the forest elephants. We tend to see a lot of African bush elephants or Asian elephants. We don't tend to see African forest elephants as much. We saw them on planet Earth, but this is probably a more in-depth look at them. They're basically doing everything that elephants normally do. Them fighting, males and must, mating, but it just seemed more special. The fact that it was mostly in this one clearing, this and it was a very in-depth look at elephant behaviour, more so than we get in most series, I think. Again, the shots were great, the fight was great, there is the big extended sequence of the elephants mating, which, maybe could have done without, but, it was still interesting. And yeah, it's a really good sequence, a really memorable part of the episode, and there was quite a lot of really good elephant sequences in this series, and this is one of the best, and yeah, it's really good. Number 5, I've got Attenborough and the baby rhino. So this is probably one of, if not the most memorable sequence from the series for a lot of people, and it is pretty great. It's a pretty special sequence. You don't get a lot of Attenborough presenting in these series anymore. It's mostly just narrating. So it's always nice to see a bit of footage with him interacting with an animal. But this is great. It's just a really nice sequence. The fact that the baby rhino is blind and is interacting with Attenborough through sound and he's kind of conversing with it. It's just really nice. It's a really cute sequence, dare I say. But it is kind of lovely and it does warm your heart. It's just a really nice sequence. There is a reason it's one of the most memorable Attenborough moments of all time for a lot of people. And yeah, it's pretty great. Number 4, I've got another rhino sequence, and that is the black rhinos from the Kalahari episode. I think going into the series, I thought I understood rhinos pretty well, that they were solitary animals, really aggressive. But no, this series showed a pretty tender side of black rhinos. It showed you how social they were under the cover of darkness, which was really interesting. Didn't know about that at the time, and it was just interesting watching them interact. There's that one rhino with the antelope skull on its head that's kind of used for decoration, and it still attracts a female. It's just fun and weird. Again, this sequence was just really interesting for me at the time, because just didn't know about it, and I thought it was really cool. Rhinos don't get a lot of love in these series unless they're talking about how endangered they are. This was very different. It just showed you their behaviour, which is actually something we don't get that often. Number 3, I've got the elephants in Amboseli. So in the Savannah episode, there were a few elephant sequences, all in Amboseli. I've kind of lumped them in together because they're all pretty great, especially the one in the drought when you see the mother elephant looking after its calf as it's dying. Pretty harrowing, really, really horrible sequence to watch. It's probably the best elephant in a drought sequence I've seen, which isn't a kind of sequence you tend to see that often now because it's a bit more kind of wholesome and cutesy. This portrayed that event in a pretty harrowing detail that I think was necessary, and I really thought it was really impactful. And then also when the drought ends, you see the elephants fighting again. That's not something you see that often nowadays. It's a pretty intense fight. You see how powerful these elephants are. So again, another really good elephant sequence in this series. Most sequences in this series either deal with animals that you don't see very often, or ones that you do doing something a bit different. But elephants are the ones that get the most screen time, doing things we've seen before, but a lot of the time it is the best version of those behaviours. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Number 2 is the sea turtles hatching. So again, like the elephants, this is a type of sequence we've seen loads of times before and since, but this is the best one. It's so high octane, you're really on the side of the turtles. I think the fact that you're on ground level with them, and every time a predator snatches one, you feel the surprise, like you feel like it's a big shock, like the turtles would feel. And that one turtle that hatches at the end, just trying to get to the breach, is great. Even when it's in the water, it's still got to deal with the waves and kites that could potentially pluck it from the water. That one shot of the turtle under the water and the kite just going overhead is great. It's just a great sequence. As I said, this is a sequence I've seen a lot before and since, but this is the best version of it. And considering it's something so iconic and as well documented as sea turtles hatching and trying to get to the beach, evading predators, the fact that this is the best one kind of speaks volumes. Like, it is very, very impressive. And number 1 is the most memorable sequence from the series for me. It is the one I think about most when I think of this series. It's a pretty great sequence, and that is the giraffes fighting in the Namib Desert. This was terrific. When I first saw this when it came out, I was like, that was incredible. You don't see a lot of giraffe sequences, and this is the best giraffe sequence we've ever had. It's the definitive giraffe sequence I think of. When you think of giraffes in these kind of series, this is the sequence that you think of. It's pretty great. The battle between the two giraffes is amazing. In slow motion, it really, really works. And you've got a proper hero and villain story. It's almost portrayed like a western in a way. You've got the male, the kind of sheriff, if you will, of his little territory, and the other male comes in and tries to, fight him off, but he's able to defeat this new, villainous male. It's great. The fact that it looks like the male we're rooting for is almost going to go down, and he manages to evade that last blow and whack his rival in the belly. It was pretty incredible. Really, really good stuff. It's in the very first episode of the series, and it is a really, really strong opening to this series. It's pretty great, and yeah, it's the best part of the series for me. So yeah, this series is, as I said, great. It's one of my favourites. A lot of the sequences that I've discussed in this video kind of show why, but there's a lot more that didn't make the cut. So yeah, let me know what your highlights of the series were. What were your top 10 moments? Let me know in the comments below. And as I said previously, this is the last video I'll be doing for the series Africa. So let me know what you'd like me to talk about next. And in April, the BBC are doing a celebration for Attenborough's 100th birthday. There's going to be a big live event. I might do videos on that, I don't know. I'm thinking about doing something for it, like a top 10 video, either of the best Attenborough series or the best moments. So if you've got any preference, then let me know in the comments below. And yeah, as ever, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, or don't if you don't want it. And I'll see you next time for whatever I'm talking about. And goodbye.